All right, everyone. Mr. Producer has asked me to give everybody an idea, give you all an idea what an Ingbretson Studio workshop might look like, and I'm going to try to do that tonight. It's nighttime here. He'll put the data up on the details up on the board, up on the screen, I should say, about the workshop and ways to connect to sign up and all that. All right. So, but before I go into all this stuff, I want to thank Laura Kay for your continuing support, Laura. So appreciate it. And as I said, I always hope that I'm trusting that you're getting your money's worth, so to speak. I'm going to, this is called. I'm going to call this workshop an Ingbretson Studio Boston School workshop, which is interesting, right? Sometimes you think of Ingbretson Studio. I used to call it Ingbretson Studios, all these different studios. It's more like many studios. Nevertheless, I've never called it a school, and it isn't a school, and I don't like the atelier word. It's too pretentious for me. Sorry, friends from all that world, Mandy. But let's just go on. I'm just going to give you the Ingbretson part of it, the Ingbretson Studio. This is my work. Some of my work gives you some idea. You already have seen all this stuff. I'm not showing any portraits this time. I want to sort of plow through this a little bit. The general thrust of this workshop is to be an intensive introduction and working through with critiques and full-time work. That's 5 days a week plus a day at the museum if we can get it. And and you can see all this stuff. There's more specifics on that online. But I am trying to get across to you a particular way of working, and it's very unusual. I keep saying it's like the Jerry Garcia's, the Grateful Dead, his agent, I guess, said to Jerry that, it's not that you want to be the best at what you do or simply be the best at what you do. You want to be the only guy who does it. And truly, I start these videos with the idea of talking about the Boston School in a methodological way, because there are a lot of people that connect to GAML who think they're working, who refer to themselves as Boston School. But boy, I hope this doesn't keep happening. My throat's a little iffy today. So if it just is a unique way of thinking. It's a method. The school is the method, right? And what I do, what I teach, isn't the GAML method. It's actually something way close to the Boston School method. And it was all the aphorisms, all the stuff I learned in a context, the Boston School context, even though I learned it from what you may as well call an academic GAML. But the Boston School, this is Tarbell, and then there's Thompson, a student of his. But that gives you a very clear idea of the purely visual on the left there, something in the Velasquez camp slightly. And and then the one on the right is a student work. I mean, maybe not student, but an early work, I believe, of a student of Tarbell's, someone coming out of the actual museum school, the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, which is where Tarbell and Benson and others did their teaching, and where you could say they established a school. But the school is really a way of thinking in their method more than it's what happened at least until you were there for a bunch of years. That isn't primarily what you were picking up, was the Boston School methods that you see in the introductions that I've made of it. So I'm showing this as a mere demonstration. I don't know why it's here. I should probably have skipped it. But what I do is frequently we start with brown paper studies, and the idea is to get you into the mindset of the mass, what you might call the tonalist mindset, which is how to produce light effects using values only. So there's the great value scheme, and then there's the order of effects. And so you can see that this is actually a view over, appears to be over a chair, over a table or two, and some studio stuff, and then the windows, the studio windows way in the distance. But very much introducing the way of thinking through the values world. And so we do this with various, sometimes we use copies. This is a copy of a tarbell, and we probably will do some of that this time. But these are all studies. Let me give you a close-up of some of them. This shows you how strong and kind of impressive these things are. And these are short. These aren't many, many hours. A long one here, and they're not very big either. You can probably guess by looking at the brown paper that they're on. This is, what you might call fish paper or shipping paper or whatever. But you can see the beautiful, the orientation is around light effects. And what we are doing is people are picking what you might call random parts of the room and doing what might be called interiors. But they're just doing random groups of objects that strike them. But predominantly picking things that are fascinating in color, in light, and then they just chase down the idea of pursuing the values plus effects into the light. Here's an interior, a charcoal. This is again charcoal drawing on brown paper. So there's an interior. You can see, and these people aren't sophisticated, 10-year draftsmen or anything like that. These people are reasonably new to the game. But you can see how effective this is. One of the sort of interesting issues is that you can sometimes be glib and sort of fairly impressive with this way of working, and not be a very good draftsman. And it does give us a bad name if that's what people do. But here's one that gives you another example. This is a guy first time with me in a workshop. And you can see he's sort of, this photograph is slightly from the wrong position, but you can see what the game is here. Again, I don't know how many hours. This might be as many as 9 hours. I think he's working on it longer than some people do. I'm recommending you do these kinds of studies in limited periods of time, a matter of a few hours, but and they're not very big. I can't tell you they're even 9 inches in size. But you can see the pursuit of the visual order, the order of the light. It's all driven by values and effects, as I said. That's what the game is going to be if you're with me. I do demonstrations. This one here is, I'll show you what it is, actually. It's a still life. It's again, brown paper. So you can see how I start. I start as if you were Monet, but just values. So I'm spotting around some values. So I got this light too low initially, and spotting around some values, and then beginning to gradually mass more and articulate more, and you keep on going like that as you pursue your way around through the entire thing. I don't see the actual, this is probably, I guess maybe that was a demo. Yeah, this is probably the nearest thing to the end. But that gives you a sort of a clearer idea of what we're going to be doing. I'll be actually walking you through this. Well, the point that my organizer over there is, my former student over there is wanting me to make here is how much more you're going to get out of a conversation, especially 4 long weeks with me in your ear virtually every day. How much more information you're going to get than you can get online. And admittedly, at this point, these things are not inexpensive, these workshops. And I wish I could do something more about that. We are trying to make sure that there's some number of dollars that enables people who don't have backing. But I have a feeling that because the space is so limited, that's going to be a hard thing to do and still pay our tickets over there and stuff. So here's a study done in the next room over, in which you can see that the subject, this is tilted, so the angles and stuff, drawing doesn't look right that way, but you can see where the orientation is around what I tell you to do is darken your eyes and not draw. And so that whole huge piece of that discussion is how to keep you out of secondary drawing. Now, you could argue that some of this is less than secondary, or it's certainly pretty close to primary, but and certain other parts of this. But you can see that the orientation is to be all over the place at once and be powering up these spots enough so that they are useful. at getting you the angle relationship. So this is the points and the angles, and that all that stuff, the Sargent discussion. Again, it's a mass problem at that point. I also walk you all through the cropping problem, and I'm going to be doing that for sure. And that is, you could have a still life that looks like this. You can crop it this way, and it has one come in, and you crop it this way, and it's a whole different fascinating abstraction. And it's not that one is more right than the other. You have to search. You might even do both of them, but you're searching out your poetry. You're trying to find that to which you respond best. And so having a setup, and if you're setting up yourself, you've probably already used objects you like, and you've already found out what these things do together to make the greatest amount of magic. But that cropping thing is something that we work on to get you that last bit of mileage, that last bit of punch into your effect, into that thing that really makes you want to draw that. And this is a demonstration. This is a demonstration I did for one of the workshops not too long, maybe it was 2 years ago. So it's just, here's the pile of junk, and here's the painting. Again, that might be, I suppose that might be 12 by 15 or something, 11 by 14. I don't know how big that panel is. Not huge. And typically I'm doing it in a way that this looks to be at the same size, so I'm not sure why that appears bigger here. I do them primarily in something close to life size, so you all can see what that is. But demonstrations are part of what I'm doing, and I do the brown paper demonstration, I do the still life demonstration. This is a walkthrough of a student's work. You can see their setup is here, and then you can see the blobbing gradually getting to the drawing. You can see white canvas for a while still, while some articulation is beginning to happen. This is placement sort of articulation, and this. And but you can see that there's a gradual process of working from the outside in, from the greater to the lesser, from the majors to the minors, including major forms to modest forms. So we wouldn't be going in there and drawing all the little bumps on this little guy over here anytime soon, or even all the littlenesses of this thing here anytime soon. The more important to get this thing talking to this thing as a cup here and a ball over here and all that sort of thing. That's our conversation. But you can see that there's enough in this to convey, and that's what you've probably heard me recently say, that's the sort of the key. There's key spots, keys. There's certain keys, there's areas that if you can get that going, you're going to have a handle on the whole thing pretty soon. And that's why it'll work, This person was working apparently from the left to the right side, and the top, let's say this width here was secondary. And that's something also that you're going to find me recommending. This is a painting. This is a painting of well, you can see what it is. It's a mannequin with a dress on. Well, it's the same thing, trying to exercise the visual order approach, not drawing stuff before it's time, but drawing well the guys and trying to get the fullness of the effects of these key areas, this here, things like this down here, or that, whatever. This looks like, again, another shot. Should have been shot from further over to the right. Or maybe not. Yeah, maybe that thing got moved on somebody. Nevertheless, you can begin to see what the game is. So we'll be doing paintings I typically will set up numbers of still lifes and groupings of things, so you can choose to do something more like an interior, like this chair here with some junk in it, or actual piles of junk. There's stuff piled the way I do it, and hopefully I can do it at Ollie's the same way, where everybody can get themselves into good light, and we can have a setup that will gift you a still life here, or a still life there, or an interior bit, the two of them, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, I think, Mandy, and probably Lindsay for these. But that's the pastel, by the way. So this is a pastel or painting workshop. And these are some more pastels. This here, oh no, the bottom, these are paintings, I believe, but this gives you an idea of a blocking in process, the searching out the colors of the pastels, just being all over the place at once again with just broken strokes, a little bit, searching out the color, somewhat of Monet fashion. If you were to come with the pastels, come with a set of at least 180 pastels, They're sort of the generic set. Maybe Rembrandt or Grumbacher sell those. Not sure who else. They're not inexpensive either, but you can again see that all over the place at once. There's this pursuit of the richness of the color, and then the power of the effect, which is a combination of the chroma plus the values plus the edge. And so you're going to get that conversation endlessly from me, and then a good way of processing it so you might say generalize about a lot of things that are not early drawing, and then but really articulating well the drawing that is significant. And another set of pastel, again, you can see little still life groups. They're just parked in different places around the space. So there's a different angle. This one got this person that, where is that? Is that right there? Yeah. Got this person a still life, a green still life, rather. So it goes. This, I don't even know where that one is. This might be a different still life from a different year. But that's the kind of stuff you'd be engaging in. You will come away if you can follow, the process of being relational, really using your color and following the process of the visual order. But that's what the goal is, to try to have you, not you. I'll have you set up some still life stuff, but I'm not going to have you lose time learning to do that. That's something you have to learn on your own, but there will be some time dedicated to that. There's also kinds of presentations. I'll do a Boston School presentation at least once, if not more. And those are the times when you can actually talk to me more. You see a lot more pictures. I don't know what that, museum tours, I don't know what is available over in London. Now, I do portrait demonstrations as well. These are both portrait demonstrations from workshops or from the classroom. I think they're both from workshops. And I'm not so sure. This might be a classroom workshop demonstration. But this is a demonstration at the start. And my focus is going to be to try to get you all into understanding what to put into the start of a Boston School painting. Because if you can figure out what to put into it and sort of how to manage the stuff you're putting into it, what's first, second, and third, and all that sort of stuff, and what the total package has to include, you're going to understand how to do that at minor levels. Do you see what I mean? I think people sometimes refer to that as fractal system, but maybe it also fits into that idea of patterns. But we do things in these large things, and then we do the same things smaller and smaller, because our world is ultimately very simple. It's just the right color, the right value in the right place. But I would say, and what they do when they meet, of course. But so this is a brown paper study again by one of the students, and I think this is Mary's. I know this is Mary's. But you can see that orientation, how that's staying away from being very articulate with stuff that really is important. Even something like this, if it looks like that, that's articulate, if it's articulated well. But the idea is to articulate the parts that are useful readers, and to ultimately, but also to blur your eye and keep the value masses organized. And also the content, the great form content. So you can see there's an element of forminess. Well, this person is on the way to starting to subdivide that form, but I want to see a portrait in which that form isn't subdivided. I want you to see that you can make a really beautiful portrait before you've even managed the indentations on that egg. So you can follow that perhaps if you go far, far away. I've said before, I was a young student, and I just believed Perugino's egghead figures, and until I saw them myself by seeing being a girl watcher as I was as a young man, seeing these three women walking toward me, young college age, and just from the distance I was standing, there was something attractive about them, but I was noticing I couldn't see their features. I just saw eggs, and they looked like little Peruginos. Well, that's the sort of thing I'm trying to get people to do, is stop worrying about what's going to happen next and next and next, and just do a really beautiful egg with whatever data circumscribes it. We don't falsify the shape, but the form is broadened so that you're dealing with the eggs to the minors. That's the kind of stuff you're going to hear over and over again. And here you can see two more examples. These are also Mary's examples from Mary when she was in one of these workshops. But you can see the orientation is around trying to get the right egg, that egg, so to speak, and all the visual order with all the light to play. So getting this to do that and power up the light, getting this over here to play the light game early and often. And the order of all these effects I'm calling effects, though, wherever you see these silhouettes, I'm calling those light effects. But there are also light effects that happen as the glow in the middle of a form and that sort of thing. But you can see the same orientation here. You can see that she's after all the strong players, and she's being good at actually, for example, losing totally passages of the painting. That's that first walkthrough. This area here would also be generally lost, maybe pulling off a little bit of that reader there, and so on. So I'm into showing you how to do that. That's what we're going to be talking about. Mary has, in the past, pushed some of these beyond what other people have, but this, again, is a workshop one. This was, too. I think she might have worked on that a little bit more on her own. And it's very beautiful, very lovely. I should go back for a second. I didn't mean to just dash on that one. But, and there's Deidre. How are you, Deidre? So, yeah. One of the things I do when we're doing portraits, though, is I try to show you how to set up a portrait. I set up portraits with you and have you set them up as well, to learn how to do the color, how to find the right color for the background and the right dress for the model and all that sort of stuff. So the models, hopefully you have models that come in with a good variety of things. You can find, a lot of times models don't know they just like certain colors, but they don't know what goes well with their skin. So you sometimes find yourself in a dilemma, but that still is something we can talk and walk through, the whole process of setting up a portrait still life, a portrait. And then we used the figure a couple of years ago. We sometimes don't get to the figure, depends on the size of the workshop. I think this time we're aiming at the portrait, but if we happen to have an opportunity, I would certainly use the figure as well. But this, as you can see, is oriented around building the color. And so you can see the drawing is broad, and it's not, it's articulate where it needs to be, but it's otherwise not, it's not fine is the best way to say it. But you're going to see opportunities like this. And again, these aren't very big. Again, they might, certainly because of space, I've limited what we're doing to maybe something by 20, maybe 16 by 20. Maybe, I forget if we go that big. But again, you can see that orientation is around the beauty of the color, the richness of the color, the saturation of the color, and wherever it happens, that whole orientation, and then the order of the effects, the power of something like this, and wherever the punchiness is, you can see that we're building the entire painting in a broad structure and slowly coming in on the finessed elements of it. You'll learn, one of you guys, I think it was the Fordismo guy, was talking about not being able to get, was it you? Not being able to for example, to draw a beautiful line here and not be able to keep it when you went to refine it. And what my orientation is around trying to get you guys to really make beautiful sets of color notes, for example, and then make them even better when you subdivide them, when you do more to them, when you add more folds, when you add more values, for whatever reason, to enhance, to really bring it even more beautifully. And that's a big function of what I'm trying to do in a workshop. It's to get you to believe in drawing major things really well, knowing that you're going to have another chance at it, and not being so worried about that first shot at it where you got lucky. What did God say? It's not if you can get it in 6 sittings, whether you can keep it in 60 sittings. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and that's the composition class. I'm adding that. Some years I do, some years I don't. I think lately it's all what I do, but these two happen to be a discussion of these images here. Just happen to be a discussion of spotting, the idea of value distribution and that sort of thing. When we talk about composition, we have a linear aspect to it, the way I present it, which is the main line. You'll find all these things online already, by the way, on some level. But if you want to work it out with me, And if you want to look at a lot of pictures together and all those sorts of things, you can do this a whole lot. Yeah, and you can do it with question and answer. I do mean to do this in some version of a 6 or so. I don't know how many classes we're going to have. Maybe we'll just be doing it in 4 classes. It's harder to do it all really well in 4 classes. But we're trying to make it available to others if they want to be at that event. We're trying to make that happen. But anybody who goes to the workshop will also be in the composition class if they choose to. All right. So I think that's what I have. That was it. So again, this is happening in May into June. Like the end of May, last week or so of May, and the first, I guess more than a week, more than 10 days, and the next rest of the 2.5 weeks or whatever into June. The Mr. Producer is putting all that information. He's making it. He's showing you where that's going to be available. So I think that's where probably I should leave it for today. I don't know if there's anything else. I do, as I said, I do presentations. I offer you quite a bit of printed material. I usually give you my book that's still in draft form, sadly. But even we talk about aspects of it. Sometimes at lunch, in the past I've sat down and we've talked about chapters of the book, and as you're reading them, for example. So yeah, when Sir Joshua Reynolds said a person who can paint a still life can paint anything, he's really talking about more than painting it, of course, but the idea of setting it up and all that sort of stuff. That's what it takes to make a picture, right? Now, it is true that the figure is a moving target, and that makes that problem just a little bit more difficult. But all the essential problems apart from that one are there in the still life, and it makes a very, very, very good medium. And it's what we primarily are focusing on. But it's not just the still life; it's the interior. We also work with the portrait. I try to set a portrait up so you look at the one we just looked at. This, or I try to set things up so they have a little more to them, so that it's more of a composition. But usually you're just dealing with a head like this over here, and it's a question of good spotting mostly, and but but the still life really is, never underestimate what you can get out of that. And notice what how magical it is when you can get that color and light. Keep remembering too that one of the things I'm trying to get across to you is how important it is to be able to set up a good still life. We'll talk about that for sure at the workshop. But and again, these are all online. If you guys want to come to this workshop, please sign up early. There's a very limited number, but and I think I'm hearing there's going to be maybe even this is part of a significantly reduced price for the first some number of people. So. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, but yeah. Oh yeah. But if you come in prepared by having looked at the other video, all the videos on everything from composition to the lay-in to whatever, just get your head around it again. And when you come in here, you might be consolidating this information in a way that you could never have dreamed about doing. I'm not a fan of workshops when they're short. And I'm not sure what I know about these. I've had people come to several workshops, and their work clearly improves. But it is important that you go home and work this out and work this out and work this out. But a long enough workshop can get your head around it. Can actually get your muscles doing what your brain's already been introduced to. So let's just leave it at that. Demonstrations, brown paper, still lifes, full color, pastels, oils, and a composition workshop. And that's largely it. I do presentations definitely on the Boston School. And with that, thank you again, Lauren Kay, for that very, very sweet and consistent help for the videos. All right, folks. I hope Mr. Producer is happy with this. All right. We'll see you in the next one.